Good morning. My name's John Atkins. I'm the agricultural agent for Santa Rosa County, housed up at our J office. And today I'm going to be visiting with you about some of my friends, the venomous snakes of Florida. Okay, today, as I said, we're going to talk about Florida's venomous snakes. The venomous snakes or Florida snakes play an important role in our ecosystem, not only as predators to control rodent populations, but they also are an important prey or food for other wildlife. Sadly, many of our snakes uh, are threatened by development, roadkill or road mortality, and just overall persecution of by humans. By learning to deal with and even get along with snakes, you can reduce your risk of being bitten and can allow Florida snakes to play their important role in our environment without fearing for your safety. How many different snakes are there in Florida? Well, that depends on who you talk to or which publication you refer to. They're continuously being updated. Florida is home to more snake species than any other state in the Southeast. Most current publication that I referred to has us with 51 native species and 4 non-native species. And I'll mention those non-native species. Two that we're familiar with are the pythons and boas that have established in the Everglades. A lot of our information that I'm going to be talking with you today about comes from two publications. I just have the shot of one here is the Florida venomous snakes and also Florida's non-venomous snakes. And you'll, at the end of the presentation, we have a link and you'll have full access to those publications and a couple more. 6 of the 51 native species we have 6 of those being venomous snakes. I'm going to start using venomous and poisonous interchangeable, but there is a little bit difference. But the venomous snakes are the harlequin coral snake, the eastern diamondback rattlesnake, the dusky pygmy rattlesnake, timber rattlesnake, eastern copperhead moccasin, and the Florida cottonmouth moccasin are the ones that we'll cover. So it's easier to learn the poisonous ones, and if you identify those, the other snakes that you run into, you could rest fairly well assuredly that they are the harmless, non-poisonous snakes. Some of the characteristics of venomous snakes versus non-venomous snakes. Head shape is one. People say they have a diamond or a diamond-shaped head, not rectangular, diamond-shaped head. And that means that where the jaws connect to the neck of the snake, the jaws are much broader than where they connect with the neck. Venomous snakes, with the exception of the coral snake, and that'd be the first one that we do distinguish, the elliptical pupils of the venomous snakes, with the exception of the coral snake, it's elliptical. It's like a cat's eye. 5 of our poisonous snakes are called pit vipers. And that top picture there indicates that pit, which is just below the nostril. That is a heat sensing device that is very, very accurate in its capability and to like 0.003 degrees of temperature is what they can distinguish. In other words, they use that to track their prey in hunting or after they may have struck and envenomated, if that's the word, envenomated the mouse or rabbit, then they use that heat trail to track them down, because most snakes are, our snakes in the US and Florida have somewhat poor eyesight. Down on the bottom is a little sketch of the head of a non-poisonous snake and the coral snake. The coral snake's body characteristics and head characteristics looks just like that of a non-poisonous snake. It has a slender head where it connects to the neck. It's about the same size, and they also have a solid round pupil. All snakes have teeth, little small hook teeth. Only the venomous snakes have fangs. Okay. All right, like I said, we're going to start with the coral snake. And it is a very colorful snake, red, yellow, and black. But note that it has a black snout. That's really important as we talk about some comparisons of non-poisonous snakes with this one. It's related to the infamous cobra. So it's kinfolk, cousins with the cobra. It's a slender-bodied snake like most non-venomous snakes. It does have round eye pupils and a narrow head like we mentioned. The scarlet king snake, which is your left photo, sometimes is confused with the coral snake just because of the colors. But the patterns are different. On the coral, on the scarlet king snake, we're looking at red, black, and yellow. And the scarlet king snake has a red snout. But there's a little poem, red on yellow, kill a fella, red on black, okay for Jack. But in the excitement of the moment of seeing a snake, this color pattern, you might not be able to remember your poetry. If you don't remember anything else about these snakes with this color pattern, remember black nose, leave it alone. Red nose, best to leave it alone, but the black nose is a deadly snake, coral snake. Next, we're going to talk about our 3 rattlesnakes. And we'll start off with the largest venomous snake in North America, and that is the eastern diamondback rattlesnake. It's considered the most dangerous due to its potentially large body size. Average length is 3 to 5 feet, real common that you would see. In the wild, they can attain up to 7 feet. I've seen some 7 feet in the wild, and the literature tells me that they can also attain in the wild up to 8 feet. They have distinct diamond-shaped markings on their back, hence their name. They have that distinct head shape of pit vipers, and on that bottom picture, you can see that flattened head where it's much broader at the jaws than the neck, and it's a thick-bodied snake. All of our poisonous snakes, with the exception of the coral snake, are thick-bodied. And I'll mention at this point, these last 5, and this is the first of the last 5, the physical characteristics, we say thick-bodied. I say they look kind of like a baseball bat or two baseball bats laying end to end with the fat part together in the middle. And then our non-poisonous snakes, for the most part, our non-poisonous snakes and the coral snake, to me, look like a broom handle that's been sharpened off at one end, you know, at the tail. So broom handle, non-poisonous, as a rule of thumb. Thick-bodied baseball bat look, poisonous, with the exception of the coral snake. The next rattlesnake we'll talk about is the smallest of our rattlesnakes. It's called the dusky pygmy rattlesnake. It's also known as the ground rattler. As we said, it's the smallest. It does have rattles on the tip of its tail, but they're very tiny. Sometimes you might not even be able to see them, especially from a safe distance. But It is small, but it's thick-bodied. The tip of the tail of the young when they're born is yellow. So are a few other of our poisonous snakes. Usually has a broken, in that bottom right picture, you can see a broken red stripe going down its back line, and you can also see it in that top picture there. The red stripes that it usually has. Remember, these photos are just a moment in time, so these things can look a little bit different. No human deaths have been reported in Florida from the bites of this snake, and that's due to its small size and its small capacity of venom that it would carry. One snake that is non-poisonous that is often confused when in sightings with the pygmy rattlesnake is a southern hognose snake, which is that bottom left picture. Often confused. A lot of people that are bitten by these ground rattlers or pygmy rattlesnake, when they see it, they reach down to pick it up. They think it's the harmless, docile hognose snake, and boy, sometimes are they in for a surprise. Yeah. Okay, we'll move to the next rattlesnake, which is our timber rattlesnake. This one, a lot of people don't even know exists. It's not as often seen, but it is present in Florida, in Santa Rosa County. The timber rattlesnake here in the South is also known as the canebrake rattlesnake, but it's basically the same snake, just a little characteristic difference that you and I wouldn't notice. It's a large, thick-bodied snake, but it seldom exceeds 5 feet. Common lengths you would see would be 2.5, 3.5 feet. It again has the typical head shape of a pit viper. Unlike the diamondback, its markings on its back are distinct chevron bands across its back. And when we say chevron bands, what does that mean? I call them sergeant stripes. They make a V pattern on his back as it goes down. Rusty red stripe also down the middle of the back. It's not really emphasized in this particular picture. Like I said, these photos are just pictures of a moment in time. They're not all going to look identical, but characteristic is a burnt orange or a red stripe going down the back of these timber rattlesnakes or canebrake rattlesnakes. Okay. Next are our 2 moccasins that we'll talk about. The first one being the eastern copperhead moccasin. It's a pinkish tan in color with reddish brown crossbands. And if you'll notice in this photo, these crossbands that they have, they're narrow at the midline, and then they're wide along the sides. Very, very typical of the eastern copperhead moccasin. Again, no human deaths have been reported in Florida from this snake. Its average length is 30 inches. So when you got an average of 30, you got some a lot smaller, you got some that are a little bit bigger. And it's not often seen due to its limited range, and that range being around the Apalachicola area, along that northern border, a little bit east of the Appalachia with the Alabama line, that northern Florida, Alabama border. And the literature tells us that this snake is more prone to bite than the cottonmouth, okay? Next moccasin is our Florida cottonmouth moccasin. It rarely exceeds 5 feet. Most are 2 to 3, 3.5 feet in length. Cottonmouths are common in every county in the state of Florida. Again, they have the typical shape of a pit viper in that head. And if you'll note, adult color patterns vary from olive to black. And if you look at that photo of the moccasin on the log. That's what we're saying is kind of an olive shape with those black cross bands on its body, but it can be that olive color with or without the cross bands. And then if you look at the one on the bottom, it's indicating the black color pattern or color phase that we have. And it also has those cross bands, but they don't necessarily have to be present. Two most distinctive characteristics of this very, very common venomous snake that we have in Florida is the black line extending from the eye to the rear of the jaw. And you can really see that clear in that bottom picture. You see the black line that goes from the eye back to the rear of the jaw. And another distinctive characteristic, it has shields over its eyes, or those shields are scales that protrude, and it just gives it a mean, nasty, sinister look when you see them. If you ever see this snake alive, it just looks nasty, okay? And it's that head shape and those scales over those eyes. The young have reddish cross bands with bright yellow tails in their young phase. And a couple of those snakes I mentioned have yellow tails, and these moccasins are referred to when they're babies as yellow tails. They'll actually use that yellow tail and wiggle it around a marshy area or in the woods. They'll wiggle it, and a frog, it attracts a frog, it attracts a lizard, it attracts something to come, and as they think they're coming to get them a little worm to eat, say the frog does, and he winds up being food for the baby cottonmouth. Young cottonmouths have reddish brown cross bands, and I'm just re-emphasizing that when they're born, they have the color phases that resembles the copperhead moccasin. So they're not dark black or olive when they're born. They look more so like a copperhead. And then the last thing on an idea of the cottonmouth is it very often shows its signature cotton white mouth as a defensive gesture, just kind of waving it at you, saying, hey, I'm down here. The rattlesnakes sometimes rattle to give you a warning. Most of the time, the cottonmouth is going to open that mouth and give you that warning to, just back off. I'm down here. Okay. One thing about rattlesnakes, moccasins, and the coral snake is very few people die from poisonous snake bites. It does dictate if you're unfortunately bitten by one that you didn't realize was around, or if you made the mistake of harassing it and get bitten. It does dictate a trip to the hospital. It can make you very, very sick, but if you get prompt medical care quickly in a timely manner, just because someone is unfortunately bitten by a poisonous snake, it doesn't mean that person's going to die. People in the state of Florida have a better chance, worse chance, whichever way you want to say it, of dying from a lightning strike than you do from dying from a poisonous snake bite. You just have to remember, snakes are part of our environment. We have to live together. If you're walking around out in your yard or walking around, especially in a wooded trail, wear closed shoes, don't wear flip-flops. Be aware of your surroundings. Never put your feet or hands into an area, a hole or a pile of thick grass or something. Don't put your hands where you can't see. And I just threw this last picture in. Sometimes it's easy to confuse non-venomous snakes with our venomous snakes. I told you earlier that the cottonmouth is olive, drab olive to a black with or without black bands. Look at these two guys on this log. Mother Nature threw us a curve. There's two snakes there. The one with the head on the left is the southern water snake. It doesn't have that thick head, you know, flattened, you know, wide jaws at the neck where it connects, but it does have that thick body, is what I'm showing you. But if you look at that other snake with his head up, look at that black band. If you can see it close enough, you can see those scales over that eye that gives that sinister look. But that sucker right there is not olive. He's not black. He's got a burnt orange kind of color, and he is a cottonmouth moccasin. So you have to be careful in these identifications. Rules of thumb, just familiarize yourself with them so we can share the environment with some of our neighbors. Okay. And just want to give the information and credits there for you. And Miss Prudence will have those available for you to take with you. The talk came from the top two links, Florida venomous snakes and Florida's non-venomous snakes. I've had a lot of conversations over the years with a game biologist with the Florida Wildlife Commission, Arlo Kane, and then I threw in a couple of extra links that add some additional information to what we talked to today. That's my presentation for the day, and I hope you have a good rest of the day.
Thank you, John, very much. We appreciate all the information.